The Beast's Humiliation. Alara lived with her papa, Mr. Fitzwilliam, who was an inventor. He was a genius at thinking up things, but a total disaster at finishing them. Their little house was packed with wheels, springs, and half-finished gadgets that smelled faintly of burnt toast. Papa was currently obsessed with the grand dishwashing contraption. "Alara, my dearest," he declared, holding up a tangle of copper tubing. "I just need one last part. A special high-sheen, self-polishing, magnificent cup to prove my theory." Alara sighed and dusted a pile of failed clockwork chickens. "Papa, that sounds like a very expensive, or perhaps even a magical cup. Why don't we start with finding a normal one that isn't already covered in glitter?" But Mr. Fitzwilliam was already gone. He took his rickety cart and a map he'd drawn on a napkin, which mostly seemed to point towards a jam factory. He was off to find the magnificent cup. After getting lost near a sign that read, "Slightly Bewitched Woods, Use Caution and a Spoon," he found a gigantic, gloomy castle. The main door looked like a grumpy face carved into stone. Inside, everything was strange and quiet. On a dusty pedestal, shimmering slightly, was the most enormous, ornate teacup Papa had ever seen. He didn't stop to think. He grabbed it and tried to stuff the ridiculous thing into his small coat pocket. A sudden, booming grumble shook the floor. "Hello, who is trying to sneak off with Chipworth, the most valuable tea accessory in the West Wing?" Barnaby the Beast, who was really just a very large man with a terribly effective hair tonic curse, pointed a massive, furry finger at Mr. Fitzwilliam. "A thief! I shall lock you up until you learn to ask for things." "Wait, kind sir," cried Papa. "My daughter, Alara. She's the clever one. She can fix things. I will send her, and she will make you a much better cup. Just let me go tell her where I am." Soon, a heartbroken Alara arrived, following her papa's incredibly vague and tea-stained note that mentioned a grumpy giant and a cup the size of a pumpkin. She found the castle and the scowling door. Alara met the beast. He tried his best, most terrifying growl. She just rolled her eyes and said, "Look, I know this is a bad hair day, but if you let Papa go, I'll stay. And I promise not to laugh." Barnaby, stunned by her lack of fear and the bad hair day comment, just sighed. "Very well. I suppose a practical person is better than a thief. Go, old man, and take that enormous cup with you." Once Papa was gone, a small, very precise clock with a tiny, worried face on its pendulum appeared. "Welcome to the West Wing," ticked Mr. Talk. "Dinner is at 6 o'clock, or I shall simply cease to function. Do try to be prompt." Dinner was a silent, enormous affair. Barnaby sat at one end of the table, sadly trying to eat a pea with a giant claw. Alara sat at the other, politely ignoring the awkward silence and the fact that the salt cellar kept trying to hop away. After dinner, Barnaby mumbled, "There is a library. Go there. Stay out of the East Wing." "It's dreadfully dusty." Alara couldn't believe her eyes. It was a palace of books, and the smell of old paper was glorious. The next morning, Barnaby decided he needed to be fierce. He waited by the library door and gave a mighty bellow when Alara walked past. "Grr!" he roared. He then immediately sneezed. "Excuse me. Dust." Alara simply handed him a handkerchief she kept in her pocket for her papa's dusty inventions. "Bless you," she said. "If you're going to roar, you should probably dust yourself first. It ruins the terrifying effect." Later, Barnaby tried to glare fiercely at her from the top of the grand staircase. He misjudged the distance, slipped on a loose rug, and tumbled down the steps with a comical thump-thump-thump of shaggy fur. Alara rushed to help, but when she saw his enormous, furry feet sticking straight up in the air, she couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. Barnaby, seeing his own ridiculous feet, started to laugh too, a deep, rumbly, surprised sound. "I suppose," Barnaby admitted, wiping a furry tear, I'm not very good at being a terrifying monster. It's exhausting. Ilara sat with him and told him about her papa's grand dishwashing contraption. Wait, said Barnaby, suddenly looking excited. You like inventing? I have all the forgotten tools in the subcellar. We could build something properly for once. Ilara immediately forgot all about escaping. They spent the next week covered in soot and glee. They built a magnificent, entirely practical, self-cleaning, rotating bookshelf that also made excellent lemon biscuits. Mr. Talk nearly fainted from the sheer usefulness of it. During a test run, Barnaby tried to dust the biscuit lever with a very old feather duster. The duster accidentally knocked a bottle of extra-strength anti-curse hair removal tonic that Papa had forgotten onto Barnaby's head. There was a blinding flash, a puff of pink smoke that smelled strongly of roses, and then, poof, Barnaby was just a regular, slightly shy, but very handsome man. He looked down. My hands are small and not furry. Ilara's papa returned and declared the bookshelf biscuit maker his best invention yet. Barnaby and Ilara were happy, not because of a grand love spell, but because they both loved dust-free books and utterly ridiculous machines.